again, thanks so much, Nadia, and thank you, Matt, for helping us with this. But I'm just quickly going to lead you to another small exercise where, based on whatever Nadia, Matt, and earlier our vulture experience, we've spoken, how do you think your organization or you tend to balance these four quadrants? Consider you have 10 coins. So let's say each of you have 10 coins, which cannot be distributed equally, and hence we have 10 points. How would you distribute those 10 coins across these four quadrants? Just to get or how do you, well, let me say, not how you would do it, but how you already actually do it. Am I right, Justin? That's what we are doing, right? How you are doing it at this point in time.
Specifically relate to communication, right?
Yes.
Your communication activities as an individual organization.
Yeah, maybe Justin, why don't you just take a minute and also explain these four segments of the quadrant as well?
Well, I think, yeah, it's just thanks.
I know it's self-explanatory.
I think the point is just to see, because we talked a lot about, I think we've personally focused a lot on the planning as elements in this session, on what we can do, who's our audience, what the different steps, and even Matt was hoping to even break it down even further. So these are all examples of how we can plan, right, with our coins. But then there's also the process of acting and actually doing it, doing the activities you planned with your campaign in terms of the different levels. And then there's the once the campaign is over, for example, after the petition Kustub shared, did the team come together and reflect on these issues? And then did they, like Nadia just said, okay, what were our weaknesses, what were our strengths, and tried to learn from it through some more intensive evaluation. So it's just a kind of getting an idea of what our tendencies are as people during our campaigns for communication. Where do we normally go? So if maybe in the chat, everyone, you can put the coins, or maybe you want to put all 10 in one court. Please go ahead and write in a court where you lie in your tendency. It's maybe easier as a person, where you lie in your tendency in when you communicate. Maybe you never get out to writing any personal tweets or any information about your work. So you realize you're stuck in the planning. You don't even get to the planning. Maybe you don't do anything. You can keep your coins in the center. Okay,
there they are right now. Yeah, so maybe a minute or so. Hey, Justin, while we have people thinking, and sorry everyone for speaking here, but how much time do we have beyond our scheduled end time, given the unfortunate incidents?
Maybe we can, as long as you need, Crystal.
Yeah, as long as you need, Crystal.
Ooh, that's very dangerous.
Maybe 15 minutes?
Yeah,
everyone's okay.
More minutes?
I think, yeah, we'll try to wrap it up in about 15 minutes, but yeah, usually we go about 15 minutes anyway, so.
It's very interesting. We have some very balanced team members. Kustub and Nadia claim to be very balanced.
No, I haven't claimed anything. I just gave a template. Hey, Nadia, you're still left with 2 more coins. You have only spent 8. You have to spend 2 more.
2 she doesn't do.
Nisars is planning to.
But it's kind of weird, like when you look at all these 4 windows, you automatically think you feels like you have to spend all equally time to all these 4 aspects. But in real life, I realized we do spend a lot of time for planning and maybe also acting as well. But learning and reflecting, I felt we spend very less time in real life. But ideally, it's supposed to be as I wrote, but
Yeah, so there we go, which is why I corrected myself that what we do, not what we should do. I'm sorry, I kind of confused everyone, but basically the question is what you actually end up doing at this point in time. What we all want to do is kind of really try to balance it as much as we can, but yeah.
So we have quite a balanced group, which is great.
Yeah.
And maybe that, I mean, that's why we wanted to move the conversations then, because we talked a lot about planning, we talked a lot about actions, but what can we do in our campaigns for reflecting, for learning? And since many of you are very balanced, you can share what you guys do to achieve that. So maybe that's the next thing in the chat. If you can start sharing tools or techniques on how one can reflect after a communication campaign, or imagining, or through the process of one while it's still going on. Gustav, please go ahead. Yeah, how to reflect, how to learn. What did you do, Kustub? Do you have some to share initially from your experiences?
Oh yeah, so I mean, the campaign, to be honest, was, let me just put it that way, not getting to the vulture issue, let's stick to the snow leopard one for now. But what it really helped was it allowed us to have absolutely no resistance in getting the Bishkek Declaration endorsed from all the 12 range countries, because it had unanimous support from all spheres. The public campaign, which urged the governments to take a certain action, had very clearly requested a few things, which ended up being a part of the Bishkek Declaration and the follow-up action. So I think I must admit we didn't do a very systematic job of reflection, but we saw it through. We saw that okay, it's ended up being there, and it got transformed into what action we really wanted at that point in time. But again, I mean, as I think all of you are so much more learned and experienced as well, we all know that there's no exit plan once you're in conservation, right? You have to constantly fight different battles every day. So yeah, while that thing was done, there are other challenges that keep coming up. Nice. There are some very honest ones, please. Sorry, Nilofer, you were saying yes, please, to what we did? Or was it about something else?
Just want to say, I wrote my real life one. This time.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Nilofer, I don't know what it does. No, so I mean, and reflections about the Toast plan, I think the fact that it did get declared as a protected area and that it got accolades across the world, I think they were fairly valuable lessons learned. And through the journey, there were things that worked, things that didn't work, which is where the planning and learning really helped. So yeah, please go ahead, Nilofer. I'm sorry. Okay, maybe we can come back to it. So Justine, let's go to the next segment if you're okay.
Yeah, just to highlight, there are a lot of tools out there, reflection and learning. We're not going to go into them in this session, but they're even for advocacy, like other community conservation evaluations. It's similar. There are evaluation tools to evaluate your advocacy campaigns. So one can look in them, and I know our resources are limited and we can't always, but you can use existing resources throughout the process, thinking, how am I going to later assess my campaign? So if you keep that in mind during your campaign, it maybe is something to consider. Anyway, back to you, Kustub.
Thank you. So basically just going to quickly change gears, and this is a section, it's almost, please consider it as a filler while Matt comes back. This is where let's try to look at communication from a business's perspective. And we have three short examples. I'm just going to run you through those And please forgive me for a bit of a shameless self-promotion here, but let's start with a question. What do you think, or what comes to your mind when you hear the word artificial intelligence? To me, it could, it's like Terminator 2, or one can, it's like Big Brother watching you all the time, or loss of jobs, or automation. These are the things. Many are, and of course, military usage, drones. I mean, a lot of these things come to mind when you think of artificial intelligence. Yes, of course, Flavia says smart picks. Justine says no Leopard ID. I'm just going to hold you on that one. Access to high-tech internet and so on. Now, thank you. That's very helpful. Now, in 2019, Microsoft decided to feature the work that they were doing with us for snow leopard identification that Justine just spoke about into an advertisement campaign. Now, we've had some very interesting discussions with the teams in Microsoft and other people who are completely watching it from a distance. And it's a fascinating little conversation where this advertisement's making a case for AI and access to some AI-based technology and infrastructure through snow leopards and a conservation story. On the other hand, it also does some good to the conservation side. So please forgive me for 30 seconds of this shameless plug, but I'll just join you immediately after this one. Just have a look at this little advertisement campaign. I'm sure most of you may have already seen it, but then I'll just come back to it. And oh, what happened to it?
With AI, we can protect what we can't see.
Snow leopards are almost impossible to find.
But we need to know where they are because they are threatened.
Our camera traps allow us to have an eye in the mountains, taking thousands of pictures.
Microsoft AI scans through all these images and separates snow leopards from everything else.
In 10 minutes instead of 10 days,
It gives us time to do better research and save this threatened species.
now, to a lot of people, it was irritating after a point because these guys went on a ballistic and they ended up with about 1 billion impressions of this one ad campaign in about 5 to 6 months. This just went everywhere with on TV and internet across the US and parts of Europe. But on one hand, and this is an advertiser or ad developer's perspective, saying that it changes the perception about AI from being a slightly militarized technology, which has whatever intentions, to something which is more accessible and could be of value in aspects where you least see a potential. And this is about, and this was developed about 5 years ago when it was truly new. And now, of course, AI is everywhere. Most of the same engine that was used by Microsoft are freely available to be used for different algorithms. But yeah, that's how it helped the campaign. To the snow leopard fraternity, if I may ask, did it do any good? It really, I mean, let me just actually have a little, yeah, I'd like you to please share your thoughts about what a campaign such as this one does for snow leopards and what it does for AI. For AI, I just mentioned a couple of quick points, makes it accessible. But if there's something I've missed out, please feel free, because to me, to us, it seems it was a fairly symbiotic relationship where both parties benefited to a certain extent. The snow leopards were no more a unicorn. People knew that there are snow leopards. Yes, where people got to know about it, it's a different question, because in the US, you don't have any snow leopards in America. but still, for other reasons, it was a valuable awareness campaign on one hand, and on the other hand, of course, it must have done some good for AI. So if any of you have any thoughts about what could have it done, we can just spend a couple of minutes there and then come back to some lessons about what we've learned about with these campaigns. Yeah, more people here, Snow Leopard, and see it, of course. That's true. I can copy and paste it there. Yes, as I said, it helps transform a species from potentially a unicorn kind of a species, which may or may not exist, to something that truly lives in some part of the world. And they were kind enough to show some maps. They showed the map of Kyrgyzstan, and that's great. It's great as an example. Right, there we go. That's true. Very good point, Rochelle. Benefits for snow leopards are likely to be temporary, whereas AI is ubiquitous. I completely agree. It might have increased mining to produce more chips. I'll put it there. There we go. Good point. Highlight how technology can support conservation. We need many skills. Well, that's something which benefits both sides, probably. I can just copy paste it here. Right. Yeah. So, and thank you for those cheeky comments. I think that makes sense. Yes, more mining probably. Who knows? And also, yes, AI is ubiquitous now. It's everywhere. Anyway, so from our perspective, our investment in this entire campaign was, I think, 4 days of my time, and that's it, right? The entire campaign was mainly their initiative, and if nothing else, at least there are more people who know there is a snow leopard. And for a fundraising campaign, for instance, if you're starting one, you have less chances of people saying, "Oh, what is a snow leopard?" Versus, "Oh, I know there is a snow leopard. I've seen it." And so to just that level, even if it is at that level, I think it helps, right? And this is where one may also need to weigh. Yeah, Flavia is saying there's now a campaign for people to engage with results. Picks program can be. That's true. Yes, absolutely. Okay, I put it here. Great. All right. So quickly moving on, since we're running a little short on time. How do I close it? Yeah, get citizen scientists involved in AI. Thank you, Justine. Oh no, what did I do? Now, some of you may have heard of the rule of 7, which is that a consumer needs to listen to a message 7 times before they will consider any action. And in this case, as I mentioned, the advertisement did that one important task of, talking about the snow leopard and making it at least something that people at least hear about, right, or had heard about. Now, we cannot overemphasize on this point that it's very important to know your audiences, but sometimes a message simply needs to go wide, and you just have to shoot sort of in the dark. And after all, what we saw in the vulture example, before we got to the stage where we were starting to identify all the entire audience or the entire specific groups that we had to address, that just just so much, right? So if for instance, in the 10 years before, or the historical times before that, people had already known about the value of vultures, that effort could have been saved. Sometimes just to share information can become a valuable thing. And I'll just share another very interesting campaign, and I mean, I'll just show you. And this is where, towards the end of 2019, we partnered with Adidas and United Nations Environment Program for this campaign, which we called as run wild with Runtastic. And again, the key goal of this activity were to communicate interesting facts and factoids about snow leopards in a fun way, ultimately sharing tidbits about what snow leopards need, how snow leopards live, how often they hunt, where they live, how they live, and so on. You can either go and read a few papers for that, or you can read an article about that. Or another way of communicating is just to have a campaign like this, which helps us reach out to an audience which we could have otherwise never reached. And in this case, I think we all love to love challenges in one form or the other, whether it's a jigsaw puzzle or whatever. So this company Runtastic is now owned by Adidas, and they got in touch with us to create this competition. I mean, these guys have 250 million users. So whatever they did, as long as it was with minimal, resources from our side, it would have reached out a large amount of audience. And I'll have some very interesting visuals from their campaign. I'll just show you some of those. I'll share sound. And this is what the campaign was. It's simple, but it again had some fascinating results. And how this eventually worked out is we've been collaring snow leopards and monitoring them for a long time in Mongolia. And one of them is called Ulin. He's a young male who traverses across this part of the landscape. And we picked up data from just 12 days of his time. Encrypted it so nobody really gets to know where he is at that point in time. If actually someone tries to locate the coordinates, it'll be somewhere in the middle of Pacific Ocean. Encrypted data, and then we worked with a storyteller. And that's where again, expertise is never. You can never underestimate the value of well, you can never underplay the value of expertise. And these storytellers came up with incredible stories about this one snow leopard. And I'll just read you. So basically, this is how the movements were. These are many snow leopards, but that one individual they picked up and created a nice little narrative around it. And yeah, I'll show you. I'll actually read out a few of these for you. One of them, and please just bear with me. What I want to communicate here is that how much a language can do wonders about saying the same thing in a different way. This is day 5 of Ulin's life. So if you're running with this app on the 5th day, you will get this message on your phone, and you can open and read it up, and it'll keep reminding you to read the message from Ulin because you have chosen to challenge him. And on day 5, Ulin would say that I took a long trip today and had a look at a new guy's territory. Don't see him around, but caught a sight of a couple of human settlements. Maybe that's why he's prowling around my neighborhood. So who's the real villain here? Makes you think. Anyway, I urinated on his home for good measure. See how he likes it. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. Live the moment, be a dream, climb a mountain, pee on a rock, Ulin 2019. Then another quote, that was my favorite rock, New Guy 2019. And third quote, now that is my favorite rock, Ulin 2019. Just a hilarious way of communicating how snow leopards maintain their territories. Another one, which is day 8, no love. When you're feeling low, it's important to remember that every step is an achievement. Covered a lot of ground today, but no luck on finding something to kill and eat front. What do you guys do when you can't find anything worth killing? Spend the day marking my territory by scraping together little piles of dirt. Bracket. Fun fact, humans in Mongolia call them Bumba. And what's worse, I've totally missed breeding season. I swear it comes earlier every year. Keep running into females with cubs and no time for a leopard in his prime. Bracket, that's me. No food, no females. I should have stayed in bed. And so on. I can happily share these anecdotes with you. They were hilarious. And in 12 days, people actually messaged us saying that we're looking forward what he's going to be saying and talking about tomorrow. And if nothing else, it just shared an interesting story of a snow leopard in a fun way for 12 days to a large number of people. And I'll just show you some interesting statistics in the next one of how well did it do. Hey. Right. Now, yeah, so that was a very quick update. You saw nearly 500,000 people engaged. Even if a fraction of them looked at it, I think we still have sort of widened the constituency of snow leopards here by a few thousand, if not more. And this is where I just want to highlight the point that if we as an organization try to do something like this, we may never be able to achieve even a fraction of it. Which is where I think there are these opportunities that one can explore and use at times with good data and strong collaboration. Sometimes you can reach out to audiences which are otherwise inaccessible, and who and which individual from that audience could become a potential contributor to whether your conservation efforts or could help prevent destructive effort. You never know. So sometimes it's all right to also do some of these wide-reaching engagements as well. Justine, is Matt back?
No, he has disappeared into the dark.
Oh no. All right. Okay. So please bear with me for a few more minutes then. And if not, then we'll start with the next and hopefully he'll be able to come back. I have a third one, and this is the last one I promise, but there's also another plug in this. Some of you may have might remember last year, our executive director, Charu, he decided something absolutely crazy. He decided to run for 24 hours. Yes, and he started it on his own, but our team got excited about it. They said, why don't we make it a slightly bigger event? It was just 12 days before his planned run was. We thought, let's open it up to the global audience, because people were just coming out of long lockdowns, staying at home. COVID hadn't gone anywhere, still hasn't gone anywhere, but they needed some activity to engage with. So we sent out communication about this little activity. I'll just quickly come back in a second. Right. So surprisingly, when we reached out to some of our partners, in less than 5 days, we had giants such as ICICI Foundation, which is one of India's biggest banks foundation, Whitley Fund for Nature, a couple of other companies and organizations, universities like American University of Central Asia, come together and join us as collaborators. Now, the key here was, of course, there's no monetary contribution required to become a collaborator, but the event in itself, it's not like 500,000. We had just about 500 people joining in, but from 1 to 500 in that little time, 33 countries represented. I think it was a fascinating way of coming together. We wrote out a lot of emails to our supporters and partners, and it was fascinating that how a lot of them responded who would otherwise not respond. They responded thrilled and keen to join this event. Again, I think by the end of it, we had nearly 3,500 kilometers added in the name of Snow Leopard. People were sharing videos and pictures and just talking snow leopard conservation. So at times, some of these broad brushed, wide-reaching campaigns can also be valuable, and I don't think we should ever underestimate the value of some of these. By the way, on that note, I would like to mention that we have another Snow Leopard Endurance event coming up on 13th of June. So do look it up, and you can see how this one goes this time, because this time we've tried to add some more fun elements where you can have your own teams come and join and participate. So yeah, the bottom line being messaging is the key. How you communicate your message, whether it's about the effect of diclofenac killing vultures, or it's about AI helping snow leopards, or running somehow connecting to snow leopards. I think the key is in the messaging, and it sometimes surprises you how far the messages can reach. So with that, I'd like to stop here for a few seconds. I think we have a lot of messages out here. Okay. I'm glad, Nilofer, you didn't. That was okay. 1 second. Justine, any key comments you would like us to discuss before we get into the social media part?
Just a comment from Flavia. She was asking, did Apple contribute to snow leopard conservation for the use of the image?
They don't. Apple has a policy of no philanthropy.
But that is an interesting conversation, though. Should the private sector be obligated, or shouldn't they, whenever they use images of such species, don't they deserve to support species? I don't know if you can talk a little bit about that, Kristen.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I mean, I'm probably nobody to talk about this, but if you look up on Google or any other search engine, the Lion's Share, it's a very interesting program which is built around the premise that when you hire a celebrity, whether it's a sportsperson or an athlete, or a sportsperson or a movie star or a singer, you pay huge amount of money to that person to help improve the visibility of your product. Now, there are thousands, if not hundreds, of products out there which use wildlife as their mascot or as an image. And the whole premise on which this Lion's Share program is built is to encourage private sector to contribute towards the conservation of the species that they're making use of for their own visibility and image branding and everything. It's starting slowly, but it's slowly growing, and I think we already know of a couple of projects. I think they're already supporting a project in Mongolia and some other projects in other parts of the world. But the key being this is one sector where the private sector, there's one a place where the private sector can come in and at least do this much for the species that they use as their branding. But again, there could be two sides to it. I mean, I'm just saying one side of it, which is what the policy or what the premise on which the Lion's Share project program has initiated. But there could be another side where you'd like to probably keep distance, but then ultimately the interface between corporates or private sector and conservation is a very important one, because I think that's where that's where we also feel proud that when the GSLEP summit in 2017 happened, for the first time we were able to bring at least 30 prolific business leaders from across the snow leopard range to come and talk about possibility of green investments, green development, green growth, and so on. So I think that's where it's important to engage with them. I mean, I think we're past the time where you can just keep them aside saying, oh, everything that they're doing is bad. Let's try to keep stopping, because that hasn't certainly not worked. Yeah, Flavia, so we know that the Snow Leopard operating system, which was released in 2009, I remember we reached out, or someone helped us connect, but yeah, Apple seems to have a policy to not engage with any philanthropic or such programs. Yes, we should make it an every year running event, Nadia, for sure. This year's is already happening. We're calling it Strides for Snow Leopards. So please do make sure you join in.
And I just heard from Matt, he might not be back for 5 minutes. Kustuba, it's up to you if you want to dive into social media quickly. I think
sure, maybe I can just start and then Matt can take over. Yay.
Sure, if everyone's okay. I think
VR.
only 10 more minutes or so over time, and then we'll end.
Oh, yes.
They have some great tips to suggest for social media. For those.
Thank you, Justine. Right, now Flavia has another good point. Just use the name then, would be good to use it. For me, def, of course, I agree. Still, I think benefits could be greater. Animals are explored, yeah.